Hi, my name is Amanda Panacea, and you're listening to the Healer Revolution podcast. This is a community for self-healers, biohackers, practitioners, and any other helping professionals. You're in the right place if you're seeking conversations about how pain becomes passion, the connection between physical, energetic, mental, and our spiritual self, finding your body's ancient wisdom, the latest biohacking technologies, clinical research, and if you just want to nerd out about complex biochemistry and quantum physics. But this is also for entrepreneurs who seek infinite abundance and a supportive community. So pour a cup of King coffee or Sisters tea and let's join the revolution. Hello and welcome back to the Healer Revolution podcast. I am Amanda Panacea, and today's a really special episode because I am joined with someone whose work I deeply respect and I have been wanting to have a conversation with for a pretty long time. So we are joined by Ashley Ihemelu. She's a functional nutritional therapy practitioner, an HTMA and blood chemistry expert, and the co-host of the Wellness Reality Check podcast, which is one of my favorite listens when I really just need the truth without the fluff, without the education piece, like a lot of other podcasts have. Both of us, we have a very similar style in the way that we work together. We've trained in a lot of very similar modalities. And so it was great to sit down with someone who not only has that shared experience with the variety of things in the healing space, but also someone who I feel like deeply gets the nuance of bioindividuality and how being a good practitioner, clinician is not just about following the rules and prescribing protocols for people. She really has that lived embodiment experience in her own life of really being a role model and somebody who practices foundations, but is also not afraid to get messy and to lean into her own darkness. And I think that's really refreshing in somebody who's going to be working with people who are going to also have to do that. And she's also very great at calling people out on things. And on the podcast, they talk about debunking myths and all sorts of great things that I think need conversations about in the healing space, but with an extremely empathetic and understanding voice that you guys are going to love her just as much as I do. So hope you enjoy this podcast. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Healer Revolution podcast. I am Amanda Panacea, and today I'm really excited to sit down with Ashlee Ihemelu from the Hungry Tribe. Hi, Ashley.
Hey, Amanda. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, I'm really excited. I feel like we have a lot of similarities in the way that we practice and work with people, and I really love, and I think most people love your very down to earth perspective and viewpoints with working with people and very no nonsense. Like we were just chatting before this podcast started on ridiculous trends. And you have your own podcast, The Wellness Reality Check with Jess, and you have a whole episode on this, which if you haven't listened
Yes.
to that one, go listen. So
Breaking down all the health trends out there.
yeah. Yeah, so tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get into like wellness culture? What does the Hungry Tribe mean to you? Why did you choose that for your name?
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I always say that my story started like way before me. My grandmother had three different types of cancer and didn't go Western medicine to kind of treat or take care of that. So she did things way before our time, like dramatically changing her diet or getting into yoga or coffee enemas or castor oil packs. Like she talks about all of this. And she was able to kind of cure herself of all three different types of cancer as they came, rolling in like waves. She ended up just dying last November at the age of 94. So this is kind of what my mom was raised under. And when we grew up, we were raised super healthy. We were never allowed to have juice. If we did get juice, it was diluted halfway through with water. We ate all organic before it was actually, a popular thing. I just remember like my mom would always kind of explain to us why we had to eat a variety of different colors. Like, oh, eat your broccoli, it's super high in vitamin C, or we've got to get our carrots in, beta carotene, like just really kind of informing us on why we were making these decisions. Obviously, no one wanted to spend the night at our house. We didn't have any of the fun junk food, no sugar cereals. I grew up in Austin, Texas, and we were shopping at Whole Foods when it was the size of, I don't know, like a CVS. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I feel like when I became a health practitioner, some of my insecurity was that I never hit rock bottom with, chronic illness, or I'd never been plagued with an ongoing symptom that really stood out. And the more I kind of get comfortable with myself and my own story, I feel like my story is valuable. I work with so many families and so many moms that it's like, this is why you're doing that, because I didn't ever hit rock bottom because my foundation was so, so strong. And so it is more motivation for people that are raising their kids kind of against the grain to keep going. It really is important. The Hungry Tribe, when I was in the NTA, I felt like everyone had a handle that like wasn't their name. And it was some like cute play on holistic health. And when I thought about the people that I wanted to help and the kind of the culture that I wanted to create, I had thought like I never had seen someone that wasn't like a woman in her 40s or 50s that wasn't hungry for something, right? Hungry for food, hungry for more of herself, hungry for knowledge, hungry for adventure. And I always had pictured it being more of a communal aspect, which, the podcast now fills that void for me. But I love the community aspect. I think that we've kind of created our own little cohort on social media, which is awesome to kind of like cheer each other on, and learn from one another. And so that's kind of the lane that I had picked with the Hungry Tribe.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I never thought about that word hungry. Like my dad kind of recently called me a seeker, but I think it kind of falls into that same category, right? Like
I would
I'm
agree.
searching, yeah, I'm out there constantly looking for like what is, what can I fill my cup with, what's different, and I like that. That's cool.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your practice. Like, who do you typically work with? Who do you like to work with? Who usually finds you? Who usually improves? Who usually gets better? Like, what does your
Yeah.
clientele population kind of look like?
Right. So I kind of started working with women like in their 40s and 50s. When I was living in the United States, a friend of mine was a functional medicine doctor, and then a neighbor of mine was a physician assistant. And so I kind of would like pass information to them as I was, getting certifications and as I was starting to help people. And I was just willing to like help anyone. But I
Mhm.
found that the doctors were like, "Oh, you can't lose weight, go to Ashley," and that was awesome at first, but I wanted to work with more in-depth clients. I feel like sometimes when people are like, "Oh, I just want to lose weight," and then you're talking about other things like, well, what are you nutrient deficient, or do you have parasites, or what are your drainage pathways like? They're like, yeah, just let me like just tell me how I can drop 20 pounds really easily, and I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
But I started to get kind of more complex cases. I joined Rooted in Wellness, gosh, it had to be like 2021, 2022. And that exploded in because Christy has such a huge following with Lyme. So then I got an influx of Lyme, I got an influx of kiddos, PANS, pandas, autism. I really do like working with families as a whole. I think there's something really beautiful about healing like as a family unit. There's a lot of energetic momentum that you can gain when y'all are all on the same page, living the same lifestyle with the same intention. I do see, I have now incorporated, not just bioresonance and functional blood labs, but HTMA and mineral rebalancing. And it has been an interesting kind of turn in regards to clients actually getting a lot better. I still kind of marry the mineral balancing with the bioresonance. I think that there is so much information with joining those two that we can help even more sensitive clients and kind of utilize our past knowledge with the knowledge that we continue to gain. The clients that I see really healing at such a rapid rate are the ones that are tackling health from a physical and a mental perspective. So, they're just healing leaps and bounds. It's really hard because it's twofold. It's like, someone could be dealing with MCAS or high histamine or, that cell danger response inside the body. And so it's not like they're doing something wrong. They just have to get out of that loop, which can be really hard. And I believe needs to be tackled from a physical and mental standpoint of creating safety in the body. However, when people can kind of think outside of just the physical, I think that the potential for healing is incredible. And I see that really working well for a lot of people.
Mhm. Yeah, I totally agree. This is really like where I started to see so much more improvement was marrying those two modalities and then kind of
Yeah,
verifying with lab work. Um, I kind of see two different camps of people, and let me know if this is what you see too, but with the like highly sensitive people, they almost can't tolerate anything, and we have to do like the smallest amount of maybe a homeopathic through that lens of bioenergetics, or even like just it doesn't matter which test they do because they have to start so slowly. And then there's people who I felt like I was in this camp where they have taken hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of supplements and nothing has moved the needle. They've done every herb, they did the whole cell core protocol, they did shoemaker stuff, they've done everything. And mineral balancing really seems to be that fit for them that starts to get things like moving. Even if it's like negative changes at first, at least something's happening instead of nothing happening for so long. Is that kind of where you see like two different types of people that you work with?
absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's like some people, it's like they've thrown everything at it. Even to
Yeah.
be honest, like myself included. Like I say that I haven't had any health issues, but trust me, like I have done all the cleanses. I've done all the supplements. I mean, I got a rash when we lived in the jungle of Costa Rica and I was like just taking dropperfuls of para 3. I was like,
Oh, wow.
just like down the hatch. Um, yeah, and so it's definitely on that spectrum. It's like super duper sensitive clients that we have to really start with like one or two supplements and very low dose and really kind of titrate things. And then there's those clients that, what I have found is clients that are in that calcium shell, they tend to not be as sensitive to supplements. Once they bust that calcium shell, it can be like, oh my gosh, now this is where all the sensitivity comes into play, which, that can be physical and emotional, as we both know.
Right. Yeah. And I fit that category as well. So tell us why are the people in that calcium shell so less sensitive?
I think as calcium builds up in the body, then we're going to, we're going to have that protective layer. I describe it to my
Mhm.
clients as if you were standing in your shower and you were looking at the shower head and you were like, wait, this water is not coming out as clear or as smooth as it should. And you take your finger and you kind of like, break up that white calcium deposits on your shower
Yeah.
head and all of a sudden things are flowing. I definitely think that there's a lot of truth to that example where calcium builds up in the body in a bio unavailable form, right? The body cannot utilize it. It's kind of a deficiency as well as a toxicity, if you will, and it can cause like psychological withdrawals. It can, perhaps be overwhelming stress in your life, potentially trauma. Um, you know, it could almost be this like hiding or lowered awareness, numb, calcified. Um, these are all things like it's almost like living in a bomb shelter or behind a wall, is how I would describe it.
Yeah, it exactly. And coming from experiencing that firsthand, it was like um a numbness that was like, I don't really care about anything kind of a feeling. Like, oh,
Yeah.
this could go either way, who cares?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and like a grayness. Like I was even painting my nails gray. Like I don't even care to pick out a
Wow.
color. This is the
Yeah.
color that I want.
And what shifts have you seen with mineral balancing in regards to that? Like, have you busted
Um,
your calcium shell?
yeah, I haven't been, so it's interesting with HTMA, and I notice this happens with a lot of people in the calcium shell is that it'll either be really hard to budge for a while, which makes sense,
Yep.
or you'll go in and out of it. Like, oh, I went into fast oxidation and then I went back in, but the calcium was lower. And then I went back into fast oxidation and came back in, but the calcium shell was even lower. So it
Yep.
hasn't been in that range since I think 2022. Um, and it's funny, yesterday I was just talking to my boyfriend. I was like, when's the time you see me the most like 10 out of 10 happy? He's like, I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen you 10 out of 10. And I'm like, what?
You're like, no.
That's horrible. And he's like, well, maybe like that time you were like 6 out of 10, that time you were like 7 out of 10. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I've never been 10 out of 10. And I'm like, what about 0 out of 10? And he's like, oh, well, this time and this
Yeah.
time.
He's like, oh, I got a list for you.
Yeah, and I'm like, man, I still really struggle with like showing emotion, or like the biggest
Yeah.
struggle was like being able to name it. Like if somebody's like,
Yep.
how are you feeling? It's like the same. There's nothing there. I'm just going through my day. It's
Yeah.
like a zombie mode almost.
Oh, totally. I used to think, or I think I was indoctrinated to believe that like my emotions were not welcome, right? Like big emotions.
Hmm.
And I tend to be one of those people that are like crazy, super duper happy or like kind of introverted, like I fluctuate, I wax and wane between the two. And kind of honoring that now as like a conscious, aware adult has been interesting to navigate.
Yeah, and that's what's normal. But depending on how you grew up and what you were modeled, like for me, it was like big emotions are scary. My parents are really dysregulated. I'm not going to be like that. It's not safe to be like that. That looks like a horrible life. So I'm not going to do that. And then subconsciously just zip it up, shut it down. And then I'm sure my decade of partying and drug and alcohol use probably like made it even worse and just
Yeah.
really solidified that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of factors.
Totally. I mean, I come to my therapist, I'm like, I don't, when like social media therapy became big, like in
Yeah.
2020, and I was like, wait, I don't have any memories before the age of 14. Like, that's a disassociation disorder.
Yeah.
And like going down that rabbit hole. And then, working with a therapist who is, we're trying to recover those memories, like when my body is somatically like ready to receive those.
Hmm.
But she's also like, yeah, Ashley, well, smoking that amount of marijuana probably didn't help your case. And I was
Yeah.
like, guilty as charged. Okay, cool.
Oh yeah, definitely not good for disassociation.
No.
Um, so yeah, something else I wanted to touch base on before I forget is how you live in Costa Rica, which is so awesome and just so like in alignment with what most people really want to live lifestyle wise. You know, we're all dreaming of homesteading now or moving to different countries. Nobody wants to live in the US anymore. So how did that come
Right.
about? And do you feel like it's everything it's made up to be?
That's a great question. So we were living in Dallas, Texas,
Mm,
and you know, neither my husband or I had to be in a certain location for work. And that was like a gift. And it also was a curse because we would put the kids to bed and we would lay in bed together and we would be like, where do we want to move? And the reality is, there's a huge world out there and there are so many incredible places. I think we kind of get stuck into what's familiar and what's safe in our minds. And what helped is my husband is was not born in the United States. So he's first generation, or our kids are actually first generation American on his side. And so that kind of opened up our borders, like it was like, oh, well, we actually don't have to just look at places in the United States. At the time, my children were, I think they were 3 and 5, maybe, or 2 and 4. And they were going to actually a Spanish immersion preschool. So this was like, I had two kids back to back. They're less than 2 years apart. And my son, who's the oldest, was like, hey, mom, can I go to school? And I had just had my second child, my daughter. And I was like, that wasn't part of the plan. It was like I was going to stay at home with them and not create more expenses by like them going to school when they didn't need to. But he was really eager to get out into the world. And so I said, well, what could we expose him to that we couldn't necessarily teach him ourselves? And that was a second language. He kind of was the kid that would always like make up languages and like, like want to be like out there. He's so loud and expressive and just absolutely magical. And he really took to the language. And then we got our daughter in when she was about 3. And we really loved it. I loved going to drop the kids off at school because all of the teachers were from Spain or Puerto Rico or Dominican Republic or Colombia. And I found even at like the class parties that I was like more gravitating towards them. I wanted to hear their stories. The school was in a very affluent city or like little neighborhood in Dallas. And like all the parents were like, oh, yeah, we're going to summer in Colorado and, get someone to drive our dogs up and our cars. And the reality was we were summering in Colorado as well, but like it didn't look the same. And I was like, wait, I want to hang out with the fun Dominican Republic teacher that like makes me die laughing. And I had also, I guess this is part of the story. I had lived in Puerto Rico before moving to Dallas to be with my husband. So I was exposed to that culture and I love Latin America. I just
so do
love
I,
it.
yeah.
I mean, it
That's why
is
I was
like,
in
yeah,
Miami.
Miami, exactly. You get it. I mean, it is fun. It is
Yeah.
colorful. It is lively. It is family oriented. It is grounded. There is so much wonderful things about it. So I had just finished my FNTP program with the NTA, and I was like, what would be cool to learn is herbalism from an actual like elder who like had a medicinal farm, who was like practicing regenerative farming practices and not overtilling the earth, and was just super mindful. So I put that out onto the universe. I started Googling. I actually found this family. The mother, who was like probably in her 60s at the time, she had a medicinal farm, family owned. She was an herbalist, and her daughter, who spoke English, had a farm to table restaurant. And I was like, this is my jam. I reached out to her on Facebook and she was like, yes, come learn from my mom. And I have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house that you can rent. And I was like, excuse me? Like, what? Now it was time to like convince my husband that like this was the path we are going to take.
That's meant
But
to be for sure.
right, the stars really aligned for us. And I have to say, it wasn't like without its challenges. Like when we arrived in Costa Rica, it was 3.5 to 4 hours from San Jose, where we were. It's a small town between Dominical and Uvita. So it's on the Pacific side and it's south. It's actually just 2 hours north of Panama border. So it's
Mm.
really deep into the country. And the house like had no windows. It had no screens. It had no hot water. We thought because we had traveled to Costa Rica that we kind of knew what a traditional Tico house was, but we really had our world rocked. And we joke about it now because we were like, did we not think that we could move or like change locations? We stayed there for 4 months. And what was so incredible was it was during the pandemic. So we lived next to the daughter who had the farm to table restaurant. Her kids, she had 4 boys. Her 2 youngest were roughly the same age as my kids. Her mom and the medicinal farm were just like walking distance, maybe like 200 meters down the road. Her sister lived maybe like 150 meters down from our house. And so our kids would be playing all day. The restaurant was closed because it was the pandemic. She would invite us over for like big meals with cousins and uncles and grandparents. I mean, we were just really warmly embraced. And I think that's what kept us around, um,
Yeah.
and just learning and loving the situation.
That's a really crazy story that how old were your kids that they were just like, okay, sure.
Right. I mean, they they were young enough to where they were like, "Okay, we're going on an adventure." We honestly didn't know even how long we were going to stay. We kind of
Yeah.
said, "Okay, at the time Costa Rica said you could stay for 90 days, but during the
Mhm.
pandemic it was like that wasn't a hard stop. So that's why we got to stay for 4 months. They said that like I think the timeline was we arrived at the beginning of November. They were saying that they would like require all expats to leave by let's say like March 1st, March 15th. But that was like really gray. So we were like, oh, let's book our tickets. We'll go back and, kind of get our paperwork to in order to kind of stay longer. But then they even said, oh, just kidding, you can stay even longer. We had already booked our tickets, it was fine. And so I think our kids were like, okay, cool. My son was in kindergarten. He must have been, I think right after we moved here, he had turned 5. No, four, he had just turned 6, and my daughter was 4. So he had started school in the States, kindergarten on an iPad, which we didn't do screens. So we thought this kid would be like so down for this experience. And he was just like, oh gosh, like this is too much and this is weird. And I can't get to know a teacher from like a from a 12-inch screen. Like this is just not right. And so I think at that point they trusted us. It was like, they were playing in the dirt and they were filling bags with rainwater and like throwing it at each other. Like it was just they were picking fruit and they knew, which was really cool. At 4 and 6, they knew, oh, this is hibiscus. This is really high in vitamin C. And they would just pick it off of the bush
Wow.
and just start chomping on it.
That's that generational like learning understanding coming from like your grandmother.
Exactly. Right. Right. And only now it was like a Latin family that was like
Yeah.
sharing all of that with us as well.
So how did you get to stay, I guess, the next couple years? Like, did you get a digital nomad visa or how does that work?
Yeah, so with Costa Rica, there's a few options. They definitely have the digital nomad visa now. That's new. And I think I can't recall if it's like official. So I think they have officially passed the digital nomad visa. They also have Pensionista which is, I probably butchered that it's like pension in
Hmm.
Spanish. And it's like if you had a pension, if you had, I think, $1,500 coming in on a regular basis each month. They also have a visa where you have to deposit, I think, 30,000 into a Costa Rican bank. They hold on to that while you stay under like a resident visa. Or you have to invest in the country $150,000. So that was actually the route that we took because while we were living on this family farm, we actually didn't have a car. People don't realize cars in Costa Rica are insanely expensive. And I was reluctant to kind of invest all that money if we weren't going to stay long term. So we would walk the neighborhood, and as we were walking the neighborhood, we actually found a beautiful property that we ended up purchasing and eventually building a house on.
Sorry, cut out.
Yeah, no, you're totally fine. I was like, oh no, she's frozen.
Okay, all good? All right.
Yep.
You cut out right when you said that was the route we took, and then it cut out.
Okay, so we that's the route we took. We invested 150,000, well over that at this point, unfortunately or fortunately. Because we were living on the family farm and we didn't have a car. Cars in Costa Rica are insanely expensive, and I was reluctant to invest in a vehicle if we weren't going to like stay long term. So we would walk the neighborhood a lot, and we ended up, my husband is in real estate and he ended up finding a property that we purchased. It's like 2.5 acres in the middle of the jungle, ocean view, jungle view. It's completely unreal. And we ended up eventually building a house on that property.
Oh, beautiful. Definitely everyone's dream.
I
So,
know. I know. I get a lot of people that reach out to me on social media and they're like, one, how did you make that happen? Two, like, how much money
yeah.
did you have saved? And like three, um, do you think it's possible? I will say that Costa Rica is not as inexpensive as people think. I know that you and I had this conversation when you were like, oh, we want to live abroad, like for a moment in life and, whatever, have an adventure. And I was like, listen, Costa Rica is not cheap. However, it does come with that balance of like really good schools for the kids. And I don't know, to us, it's a nice balance for right now. Obviously, we would adore it if it was cheaper. But we have this conversation with a lot of locals too, is I think that all in all, it does shake out where it's less expensive than the States. It's just, you know, some things are a lot more expensive, like groceries and cars, like I mentioned. And then some things are really cheap. I have a cleaning lady that comes from 7 to 3, and I think it's $50 a day. And that kind of help for me as like I have my growing practice and a podcast and 2 kids. That's invaluable to me.
Mhm. Yeah. We were looking at Panama for a while, and it was the same thing. It was like all day chef and all day cleaning, for like 10 to $30 a day or something.
Yes. Yes. I mean, so it's like a give and a take, right?
Yeah.
My kids go to private school. I think that it would at least be double the price because it's project-based learning. They, pride themselves on conscious discipline, social emotional learning. It's really super well-rounded. They're trying to cultivate thought leaders and curiosity and all of the wonderful things that we know are really important in a childhood. So, yeah, that would be astronomical in the States, I believe.
Yeah, for sure. So what, like we talk about foundations a lot, and you found a place that is really connected to nature, healthy food readily available, community. When you work with people who are like, well, I can't have that life. Like I don't get to just get up and leave this situation that I'm in. Maybe I'm in a city, maybe I'm in a situation where, you know, I can't leave the state, my kids are there. What are some of the non-negotiables that you try to hone in on with clients that they can do anywhere, no matter where they live?
Yeah, that is a challenge. I think sometimes people look at me like, "Oh, well, that must be nice, to cultivate foundations like in that environment." Like, "Oh yeah, really hard." Um, and I understand that. I think it's really it goes beyond just your geographical location in my mind. Like foundations aren't hard, as we all know. They're like really the simple things that you have to incorporate on a day to day basis. However, tend to be like the most challenging to keep consistency with because we're just not taught to prioritize ourselves or to, kind of quote unquote be selfish. And so the non negotiables that I try to really drive home with clients is morning sun. Like, let's start your circadian rhythm. Let's, be mindful of blue lights before bed. Let's make sure we're drinking enough water. You would be shocked, or maybe you have this experience as well. These intake forms where people are like, I drink 28 ounces of water a day. And I'm like, what? Like I cannot live without water. Like I'm constantly with my water bottle by my side. It's like my security blanket. Um, I think, properly nourishing yourself. I personally cannot go a day without like a morning walk. And it doesn't have to be like an hour walk. It's just getting outside. It's moving my body. It's getting in the sun. It kind of checks a lot of boxes. The potency of that foundation is like huge to me. We have two dogs that make it really easy. It's something outside of yourself that is demanding that time and attention, which I think is really helpful. But really prioritizing community, however that looks to you as well. It could be meeting up with a friend for coffee. Um, or signing up for a group exercise class. Like we need to start thinking outside of the box on how it looks. I think people are like, okay, well, if it's not perfect, then what is all that effort for? Well, it's not going to ever look perfect. Like my foundations don't look perfect all the time, but it's like this compass that I constantly come back to, which I find to be incredibly important. And it kind of fills my cup in the most beautiful way. And I also know when my foundations are off, like, oh, yep, I didn't drink enough water, or I didn't get that morning sun, or I was on my phone scrolling for way too long and now I'm sleeping like shit. Like these are the things that we kind of have to understand how our body is communicating and what it's actually asking for. And it doesn't have to be complicated. We just really need to simplify wherever you're at. A lot of times people are like, well, I don't want to sit on the pavement and get morning sun. Well, then go for a walk, without sunglasses. That's great. I tend to meet clients wherever they're at because if we kind of say, oh, this is the checklist for optimal health, then people are going to feel defeated before they even get started. And I think it's really important to kind of meet people where they're at and make those small incremental changes that promote health and wellness and healing in kind of a tangible, like easy to execute way.
Mhm. Yeah, I love the way you kind of wrapped that up because I'm sure you get a lot of these emails where it's like, I'm having this symptom. What is it? Like, is this a pathogen? Is this a toxin? But my
Yes.
questions are usually like, well, are you doing that? Are you getting outside every day? Are you on your phone nonstop? You're sending me 1,700 messages on Instagram every day. Like, are you
Right.
drinking enough water? And they're like, no, but is it babesia? And you're
Yeah.
thinking,
No, is it the mycoplasma though?
yeah. Yeah.
And
I'm
you're
like, no,
like,
we have
wait,
to rule
wait,
these
wait.
other things out.
Yeah, I mean, I think people want to overcomplicate it because if we can name it, then we can put it in a box and then we can check
Mhm,
all the boxes in regards to symptoms. We can track our symptoms and then we can kind of hopefully untangle what this label now, puts you under. And I
mhm,
really think that we've gotten so far from the mark. Like, when we first moved to Costa Rica, I got bit by a tick. I got a textbook bullseye rash. I went to a doctor. She was like, "You literally check all the boxes for Lyme." I didn't do any further investigation because I was, doing bioresonance at the time. I felt like that was good enough. Um, and, yes, because it was localized and acute, I treated it with antibiotics. I get that question all the time. People are like, would you still do the antibiotics? And I'm like, yes, based on based on actually having, a localized rash. Yes, I would. It wasn't chronic. Anyways, I say all that because I've never had Lyme symptoms. That could be because of my healthy foundation. I also think it's the foundations that I took from childhood and made my own in my 20s and 30s.
yeah, absolutely. I got bit by so many ticks as a kid growing up in the mountains. And but like all the Lyme comes up on my scan every
Yeah.
time, just like they come up on everyone's scans.
I was gonna say that like 98% of people are resonating
Yeah,
with Borrelia, Bartonella,
all of them.
Mycoplasma.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I never resonated with any of the Lyme symptoms.
right.
I was like, no, logically, I do not have that as a problem, even
Yep.
though Lyme symptoms are literally every symptom you could even ever name.
Exactly. And when I had that rash, my husband is sitting there like, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this? And I had just had a tick on me like 7 days prior. And he's like, kind of waiting in the wings. Like, is she gonna connect these dots? Like, this is what she does for a living. And I still was like, do. Like, maybe it's because my son threw those leaves at me, like just like totally out in left field. And it wasn't until I had this conversation with Jess and she was like, dude, you got bit by a tick. Like, it's Lyme. Um, and she wasn't saying that like I had Lyme, but it was like, oh, let's investigate how we can help this, right? But at that moment, I was like, I'm going to be really careful on how I word this, how I express this, how I talk about this with even myself and social media. And I mean, everyone can go back through my social media. I have never said I have Lyme. I said I have been exposed to Lyme bacteria and whatever, but I'm not going to make this my identity and then, attach to all of these really far reaching symptoms that a lot of people could check the boxes from.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think that's where so many people get stuck is when you have 100 symptoms and you go to look up what does this mean, you're going to find these communities where, and especially like Facebook groups where they're like, oh, it's this, it's this, it's this. And then you start to
Yep.
realize, oh my God, I am so toxic and so many things are wrong with me. And you get shuttled into these like one size fits all shoemaker protocol, cell core protocol, parasite cleansing, and you oftentimes get worse. Like I would say one out of
Right.
10 people improve on those, and the
Right.
nine
I
out
would
of
agree.
10 are left picking up the
With
pieces.
high histamine or
Yeah.
MCAS, right? Like now,
Yeah.
like they just really, I mean, because we talked about this in the episode of Breaking Down Health Trends. The
Mhm.
reality is, I would love it if we could take this like beautifully packaged, wonderfully marketed detox and have all our symptoms magically go away. I can even have 10 clients with high histamine and their road to recovery or like their way out is going to be 10 different
Mhm.
paths to follow. I mean, that's just the reality. There is that bio individual piece. I think when we get into this, like, oh, we've got to kill, 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 and we've got to detox, and we're kind of not addressing the elephant in the room where it's like, well, why are you the perfect host in the first place? Or are
Hmm.
you so depleted you don't have the energy and vitality to even do extra credit because your body's in survival mode? And that extra credit is going to be detox. The body's constantly healing, the body's constantly trying to create homeostasis, the body's constantly like regulating itself. We can absolutely do things that are going to help that path, or we can do things that are going to get us off kilter.
So sorry.
This is the story of my life. So you don't have to apologize to me. I'm always like, am I still
Oh no, I
there?
think this is the internet here too. Or if it's
Yeah.
both of ours or
It's a combination. It's gotta be.
I heard you, but I don't see you anymore.
Let me see. Am I back?
Yeah, the internet here, not the best.
Yeah. Welcome to a developing
No, it's
country,
still
right?
black,
It's still black.
but I can hear you.
Hmm.
There you go. It's back.
Okay, it's back. I just turned it off. So if I went black, that's why.
Okay. Yeah, you're back. So don't worry, I'll edit this.
Yeah,
But
no worries.
um you left off um saying the extra credit is going to be detoxing. I don't know if you
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, I say this a lot in practice that a lot of times we're depleted and we're in survival states. The body's not doing extra credit. That extra credit is going to be detoxing. The body's constantly trying to heal. I always tell my kids that. I'm like, your body is constantly in a healing state. The body's constantly trying to create homeostasis. The body's constantly trying to find better balance. Obviously, we can do things that are going to help promote those actions. And there's things that we can do that are going to, not promote that healing reaction.
hmm Yeah, and this is what I always really want to hone into people when they start working with me, and I have a YouTube video on this, is that your body is either adapting to stress, aka let's say high cortisol, gotta survive, let's shut down detox, let's shut down digestion, let's shuttle toxins into fat, or once the stress is over, we can now heal. So we're going to go into this deeper parasympathetic healing phase, and then those adaptations are no longer needed, but that's often where the symptoms are. And that's what German New Medicine talks about. But
Yep.
it also, like, not even knowing about German New Medicine, you'll see this with people, right? They feel
Yep.
safe finally, and then things start moving. They'll get in it,
Yep.
think about coming home after or going on vacation and getting sick. After you take exams in college, getting sick after a period of high stress, your body goes into this healing phase, German medicine or not. Like it's well documented, right?
Right, right. No, I mean, and I use that example as well, only it's like when your kids, because I'm a mom, it's like when your kids are at school all day and then they come home, and especially when they were little, they would almost like break down. It was like, they were starving or they had big emotions or, like all of these things. And it was because they were kind of like keeping up a good front all day at school. Now they're at home, they're in their safe place, they're getting the attention from a parent, and now it's like all gonna come out, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So people start working with you and they're like, I'm getting worse, or I've got these new
Yes.
things going on. And it's like, don't worry, stick it out with me. I promise this is going to be a bumpy road, but you're headed in
Right.
the right direction.
Yeah, I always describe it as like it's really clunky at first. Like it's very clunky. We're like on the road, it's bumpy, it's clunky. And it doesn't mean that we're not healing. I think, we have two camps in this holistic health space. It's like one that it's like, oh, unless I'm herxing and unless I'm like experiencing insomnia or like major issues, then I'm not healing. And also this camp that's like, okay, well, I don't want to feel anything bad. Okay. So, like, I want you to take all my problems away, but I don't want to feel anything bad. I don't want to be uncomfortable. Okay. And it's like, well, can I meet you in the middle of those two
Yeah.
camps and we proceed in kind of a clunky way with the understanding and the hope that we are healing?
Right. Yeah. You should not be so uncomfortable you can't function. Like there's definitely just not
Exactly. No,
that.
no, no. Right.
But to expect everything to just magically start to improve, that's almost never going to happen.
Exactly. Exactly. It's just not. And if we can kind of practice that trust and that surrender piece, I think we're just going to have better outcomes as a whole. We're going to learn the communication of our body. We're going to trust something outside of ourselves, even though we cannot see the journey ahead. I think it's really important when clients can get to that place where they're like, okay, fine. I've done all the things. I'm going to put my trust in you. Let's do this. That's when I see the healing happen. And I know it can be hard for a lot of people. A lot of people have been searching for a long time. A lot of people have done the hardcore, cell core detoxes or whatever it is and haven't done great. Or they've tried the Western medicine route and it did not give them the answers that they were looking for. And instead, maybe they offered them an antidepressant instead, or they were gaslit. So I think it's really important to have compassion for the people that can't necessarily surrender and trust. But when we can build the capacity to lean into that a little bit more, I think the possibilities of healing are just that much greater.
Yeah, I agree. And you probably see this too, where people will maybe not be ready for your type of work in the beginning, and then like two,
Oh
3 years
yeah.
later, they're like, "You were right."
Yeah, I've
I did
even
all this
had this
other stuff.
conversation. Yeah, I've had this conversation on the podcast. I think we interviewed Emily Morrow, but I've also had this conversation like with my therapist because I think as a healer, as a practitioner, as someone that's serving others, I think we have to address that shadow where we're going to fail,
Yeah.
and I haven't wanted, I will pound my head against the wall trying to find someone answers or trying to like overgive or, okay, you can't get your foundations, but I'm going to like plan your whole day for you, and, as I've like matured and as I've kind of addressed my inner world, and come to grips with the fact that I'm going to fail. I'm going to fail over and over and over again. And it really actually doesn't have anything to do with me. I am just the kind of the advisor, I'm the educator, I'm the supporter. But I always try to encourage clients to understand that they are the healers. Like
Right.
no one knows their body better than them. And so as practitioners, if we can just accept we're going to fail because maybe we're not the right practitioner for someone, or maybe it's just not the right time for them to receive these messages, or maybe they have to go down a different path to come back to you. I've had that a lot where
Yeah.
clients,
Same.
certain clients are like, okay, well, I've prayed about it and I'm going to go see this other practitioner for my kiddo. And I say, awesome. I totally trust you to make the best decisions for you and your family. And then they come back and they say, please, please, please forgive me. Can I come back? And I'm like, absolutely. I will
Yeah.
continue to trust you to make the best decisions for your family.
Yeah. Yeah. And this also just what helped me is taking it as like, it's not that I'm failing these people, but maybe I just
Right.
need more resources because if they're confused, if they don't understand, what can I do? What free stuff can I give? What guides, what videos can I record that are going to help them understand this process better or what I already know about this journey just from my own experience and working with so many people? How can I make sure that they have everything they need so that they get the process instead of like, oh
Right.
great, I failed them. They're leaving, or it didn't
Yeah.
work for these people.
Yeah. And I think that's just, I mean, it's natural. It's part of being a human when we can kind of like tap into those like dark places of insecurity within ourselves,
Mhm.
then we can kind of set ourselves free and we can take ourselves off the hook. Like it was like if someone didn't get better, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing something wrong, or I'm not smart enough, or I don't have enough resources. And that might not even be the case, to be honest. It could just mean that they're not in a place where they can hear your message, or you're not an energetic match, however you can translate that to. um but I mean, I personally think that your resources are top tier. I was thinking about it today, and it's just like you're honestly one of my favorite follows on social media. I love that you marry the physical with the mental and the emotional. And I think if someone's not understanding that, then they have other teachings to experience before they can come back to that.
Exactly. Kind of like with children, like their path is their path. Like they have to learn their
Yes.
lessons in the way that they have come to this life to learn. And a lot of times it doesn't mean like you've done something wrong. They have to go get out there and fail several times to realize, oh, that didn't work for my body, but now I know what works for my body. I've started to get an understanding for the things that I gravitate towards and the things that I don't do well with. And even like the failed protocols or the failed biohacking things, that was information that now you know yourself a little bit better.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I go over bioresonance scans with parents, and we have an emotional well-being signature page, and it's like going over blockages and triggers and personal mindsets and tendencies. And I know parents are like, oh, like my 5-year-old suffers with like feeling inadequate, or whatever the case may be. And I always remind them that, like, yes, the parent's job is incredibly important, but I also firmly believe that each child is like their own individual being that
Yeah.
is literally on planet Earth to learn things about themselves, or to highlight or to experience a struggle that is going to make them more grounded in who they are. I have two children. They're very different in personality. They're very different in blockages and triggers. And, obviously I haven't parented them exactly the same, but I am the same person. So we do have to, yeah, like you said, surrender a bit of that piece that, they're gonna be who they are, and their journey is their journey as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with all of that. So I wanted to get in last thing, these wellness trends. So we kind of touched base on a few. The
Yes, let's do it.
detoxing, and you have a whole podcast on this, but are there any wellness trends that really stand out that you're just like, oh, I hate this, or this is so cringe, or please everyone stop doing this wellness trend?
Right? Oh gosh. I mean, just one? Are you asking just one? Like there's
How many do you have?
right. Um, A real big ick for me is like all of these like potions and powders and cure-alls that are being sold, not
Hmm.
necessarily by health practitioners, but by just like influencers in general. We talk on the podcast about like foundations, and I don't think that there's one supplement that I could say, okay, everyone take, and this will benefit every single one of you. So I get that people could be talking or speaking from personal experience, but I find it a little bit misleading, to sell Sheila Jits like we were talking about and saying like that was your cure all
Right.
when we know there were other factors going into it. I think that people don't realize how much money you can make with a promo code or like a discount code. I mean, they're like I've been wanting to get someone on the podcast that is going to break down like an MLM and like, okay, let's break down how much are you making per month, Um, because I think that people don't realize that. It gives me an ick, to be honest, because I find that most of my clients start out in a really desperate place and
Yeah.
they're seeking answers. They're desperate. And they come across this person that's saying she legit is, curing all my problems and had me
Removing all your toxins was the
removing all
language.
the toxins, getting like I dropped 50 pounds overnight,
Yeah.
and I think that's kind of predatory behavior, especially when someone knows better, especially
Mm,
when someone knows all that they have personally done
right.
to get to the point that they are at. um that does irk me in a big way.
Hmm. Yeah. Or that peptide company that had not even come out yet, that people were
Yes.
jumping on board and you don't even know what the products are. How can you
I
be
mean,
talking about this already?
I described it on social media as like it was literally watching a game of Hungry Hungry Hippos, where like all of these influencers were like, "Oh, come be a part of my team. I don't know what we're selling and I have no idea what this is, but like please like let me add your phone number or your email," and like literally just hungry, hungry hippo. At that point, you are not even aware of like what you're doing. You're just in this frantic place of like getting as many people under you to kind of, in a way, do a lot of the dirty work. They're going to be the ones at the playground, like schlepping this like peptide that you don't even know anything about, or they're going to be the ones at the parent meetup or whatever. Yeah, that to me was wild behavior.
Yeah, and I'm not against MLMs. Like King Coffee is technically kind of like an MLM, but I'm like, that product, I don't
That
care what
product
company sold it sold.
that product, I don't care how it's I don't care how it's set up. Give me all the King
Exactly.
coffee. Let me tell everyone about it. I mean, that is a solid I think it's a solid company and it's a solid product. And it's kind of
Hmm.
hard to find that always.
Right. Yeah. So always use that discernment. But yeah, back to being really desperate. I like to tell this story to show like I'm the same as all of you. When I learned about amino acids, I went out and bought each amino acid one by one and started
Wow.
taking one amino acid in one capsule.
So you
That
took
was
all of them at the same time, or did you like say, okay, I'm gonna
it was like 10
try
pills or something.
I'm gonna try GABA. It was just like
It was
the whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah, and that was back in my counseling grad program because I learned about addiction and neurotransmitters and how you needed amino
Yes,
acids. And I
absolutely.
was like, well, I've been drinking for like 10 years. I need all the amino acids. And I was also
I am
vegetarian at the
super
time. So
depleted.
yeah, so I went out and bought every amino acid and most of the B vitamins all separately too. Like I had no idea what I was
Wow.
doing. Obviously, it didn't help me whatsoever. I was still drinking.
Okay. That was going to be my question. I was like, did
No,
it do something magical?
absolutely not. No.
And probably hard to tell which one was helping, which one was hurting, like,
I was probably deep into calcium shell at that point, so I
yeah, it
probably didn't
didn't.
notice anything.
Exactly, exactly. I've always had to like talk clients off the ledge. I'm like, okay, so you're really sensitive. We are only taking these two supplements, right? And they're like, yes.
Yeah.
But also, and I'm like, no, no,
No.
no, like you gotta be upfront with me.
Mhm.
And they're always like secretly taking certain things. And I always just
Mhm.
think it's funny because then when, the shit hits the fan, I'm like, okay, well, what have you been taking? Oh, I was trying these two new peptides because my friend joined a Facebook group, and I'm like, okay, let's pump the brakes on that. Um, yeah, it's always interesting, right? What
Mhm.
people do in that desperation.
Yeah. Or like, well, for my genetics, I was giving these 15 things. So am I taking this on top of these 15 things?
Yeah. Yeah. No.
Okay.
Do you want to live off of capsules? No.
Yeah. Any other wellness trends that stand out? Not necessarily current, but maybe in the past. Like I know we talked about kill, bind, sweat
Yes.
on the podcast when I was on your alls, and just that whole got to get all the toxins out kind of mentality.
Yeah, I mean, I know that you've posted about this and I've loved that content. It's kind of like the trends that we all have kind of lived through
Instagram
and we've
trend.
all kind of practiced through, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think, part of Jess and I's hesitation of breaking down those health trends is we didn't want to offend anyone in the way in which they're practicing at that current moment, right?
Hmm.
Because we've all been there. We've all done like wild things. We've all like a lot of things make sense in this holistic health space. And I think we have to have compassion for that. It's like we're gaining knowledge and I think we all feel like we have to keep learning to stay relevant at some point. I have practitioners that I went to the NTA with and they're still using biotic research, supplements, and they're still
I have
really just
cited.
focusing exactly
Yeah.
and really just focusing on like really basic things, but I do still think that there's a need for things like that. Do I think that they're missing some really important knowledge and maybe modalities that can help find information? Sure. But we've all lived through a lot of these health trends. Like, I get this that like my clients think that like all of their symptoms are tied into like one single pathogen. And I'm like, I don't think we can give all the power to one pathogen. I honestly think it's like a perfect storm in your body.
Mm.
Like it's never going to be just one thing. That is like the driver. So that trend, or like honestly, I think that the whole parasite thing is overdone and that people just keep, not that it's not relevant. I've had clients do like two parasite cleanses and feel like a new person. I'm not going to discredit that. That can absolutely happen. I think the
Mhm.
fear mongering around parasites is overdone and outdated. And,
Yeah.
you go to some of these pages and it's like, oh, I would be afraid at the beach. There's this parasite that can get in through your feet. And I'm like, literally living at the beach. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. I'm not going to attach to that. Or I remember, I think I like wasn't feeling good and I had like Christy do like a quick like priority scan and it was like, you've got a parasite in your lymphatic system and it causes lymphedema and like all this stuff. And I was like, I'm not going to attach to that. I think that fear mongering in the holistic health space is a trend that I wish would just go away.
Mhm. Yeah, I totally agree. The parasite work for me was when I was getting worse the fastest.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like shame, guilt. Oh my God, it's not working. Maybe this isn't it. What's wrong with me? Why does this work for everyone else? And then finally
Yeah.
realizing like, oh, it's because I had mast cells. That's because I have extremely high eosinophils already. And yes, parasites are probably part of the picture. But why would I have so much parasitic overgrowth to begin with?
Right.
Like, why do I need to be on 9 months of parasite cleansing? And I did all the meds, the homeopathy, and starting to really understand like how the immune system takes care of parasites and the terrain and nutrients needed, really helped me get out of that cycle and never did parasite work again after like early 2021. And the eosinophils kept going down, which is like that marker for
Wow.
less and less parasitic, trying to kill parasites slash mast cell activation.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's I love stories like that because I think we can absolutely feel like if everyone's jumping on this trend, like even mineral rebalancing,
Yeah,
like I think it makes sense for a lot of people. I talk to a lot of people on discovery calls or clients that are like, it just makes sense. And I'm like,
it
yeah, it
does.
does. But certain people can't tolerate it in the way that it's potentially being promoted by certain practitioners. Or there's practitioners that are like, oh, I'll run an HTMA and I'm going to give you Body Bio Calm and I'm going to give you Pickleball Cocktail
Yeah.
and maybe sprinkle in some ketones, And I'm like, oh, well, that's kind of missing the
What was
mark.
the point of the HTMA?
Exactly. I could have given that to a 12-year-old on the side of the street, right? And not thought any two seconds about it. Like it's not
Yeah.
gonna harm them. It's
Mhm.
also, might make them feel a little bit better, but I'm also not like manipulating their body chemistry, right? So
Right.
so it's yeah, but I know people that can't tolerate mineral balancing and it does make sense to them and it kind of leaves this gray area of like, well, what's next? Like
Right.
now what do I do?
Yeah, I've accumulated a lot of people who tried HTMA, probably the way it was designed, like the Endomet and stuff, and they were like, "Oh,
Yep.
it made me so much worse." Like, I failed another protocol essentially.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, we can still work with the information just without using those supplements. Like, we don't have to
Yep.
be so black and white about the way that we go about it, or those amounts either, you know?
Exactly. And I think that's kind of this health trend. It's like a lot of people jumped on this whole HTMA and mineral rebalancing, like I said, because it made a lot of sense. But we
Hmm.
forgot how we had been practicing for like years prior, right? Well, what other modalities were we leaning heavily on? Bioresonance or blood work? What other nutrients were we using to kind of help a sensitive system? Why are we throwing like the baby out with the bathwater in a sense?
Hmm. Yeah, and not saying that it could never be a pathogen or we could never like some of those like killing herbs resonate really well for so many people. Like olive leaf extract comes up so much. There's some herbs as you studied herbalism that are just like, yeah, these obviously are very powerful and we can use them at certain times. And I think that's the coming back to the full circle, the benefit of using both biores and the HTMA together. Like we can really see like what does your body really need right this second?
Right. Because we always preach that bio individual piece of healing and like, oh, I'm looking at every client like bio individually. We just
Mhm.
need to like make sure that we're actually doing that and we're utilizing all of our knowledge and all of our resources. And I have
Mhm.
some clients that I know, depletion could be at play, but they are in such a histamine flare that really they need to focus on foundations and they need to focus on creating safety in the body, maybe even from a nervous system standpoint, maybe even something that I don't even offer at this time. So, yeah, yeah, I think we all need to like practice what we preach, and it's easy to kind of do more blanketed protocols, but that's definitely not the approach that we're preaching.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. So you said not at this time. Like, is that a hint that there may be
Uh,
something changing on the horizon?
It's hard. I think that when people come to you solely for healing on a physical, um, from a physical plane, I think that really like in their mind, like even on the bioresonance scan, it's like blockages and triggers, and they're like, oh, like, oh, I didn't sign up for this, right? A lot of like my personal healing and growth and freedom has come with healing at like the mental and emotional. And I say like healing, I don't mean that it's like period the end. Like I'm constantly healing, but that's where I found a lot of like my growth and freedom. And so to be able to incorporate that in practice one day, that's where I'm kind of in this gray area. I'm in a void of like discomfort because I don't know how that's going to look. I just know it's important to me personally. And I know that I see it like we started the conversation. I see it being such a huge missing piece in people healing that I would love to at least be able to offer an intro to something on the more mental and emotional side of healing.
Yeah. And you can tell just by the way that you speak that you really get it. Like you have this education, you live it, you embody it. And I think that
Yeah.
would be a really excellent like addition because so many people need that. You're going to stand out so much more as well and probably get really great results too.
Yeah, that's the hope and that's the wish. I'm just kind of like leaning into this gray area of like what that looks like. What is that offering? For a while, I think we can get in this habit of like, oh, I'm taking another course and I'm learning a different thing and I'm
Oh yeah,
collecting all of
constantly.
these things. And I've really personally had to pause and be like, is this coming from a place of me thinking I'm not enough? Like
Hmm.
what's the motivator, what's the driving factor?
Right.
And so I'm trying to pause and really get quiet with myself to like figure out what's next in practice. I really do love seeing one-on-one clients. Like I said, I love working with families, but I do want to expand on the things that I know are going to help people heal in a more kind of holistic, congruent way.
Yeah, and I think that's where so many of us find what we're really passionate about is because we start working with people and we see all the ways that they need supported. And we're like,
Yes.
okay, well, I'm not doing this or offering this. How can I start to incorporate this so that they get it, so that they understand, so that they have
Right?
these resources too? Yeah.
Yeah. How can you add to your tool chest to where, I want to be able to help 95% of the people that come to me, right? And however that might look. But if I have more tools in my tool chest, then I feel confident with, kind of the set of tools that I'm working with.
Yeah. Yeah, and kind of bringing it back to like when people are ready, like the one-on-one services that I offer, I'm like, you can choose just the testing. We can see each other every couple months. We can do just the protocols, but I also offer this other thing over here, this really personalized one-on-one relationship type transformation coaching where we get into the blocks, the limiting beliefs, the traumas, how to self-soothe. Gosh, like some people we just work on self-soothing. We never get to trauma work. Like it's
Yeah.
such a big part of what nervous system regulation even is understanding like, oh, I'm triggered right now, or oh, I feel very um, intense. I feel this fight flight energy. What do I do about it? What does it mean? Why am I getting this feeling? Like just that self inquiry alone can take months of practice to even start to feel like I'm getting it now. I'm starting to
Right.
recognize my own signals.
Totally. I mean, I've been seeing my therapist for over 2 years, and sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, does it ever end? But when I sit and I pause, I'm like, I'm a totally different person.
Yeah.
Like my relationships are different. My boundaries are different in a really beautiful way. I know myself more. I feel so much more freedom and ease to be me. And when, yeah, it does take a while though, right?
Yes. And uh, putting yourself in new situations is hard and uncomfortable, but I think that that is what gets you the most growth. So if you feel like very resistant to learning about yourself, doing new things, finding a new modality, for example, even just stuff like that, if you feel resistant to change, that's probably where you're going to feel the most growth, is when you start to actually like take action in a different direction.
I completely agree. And it makes me think, I mean, you've put yourself in a completely different setting, a
Yeah.
completely different environment. What are some of the biggest takeaways that you've learned about yourself in this kind of new adventure?
Yeah. So the self-soothing, or the like um self-inquiry, is is the most foundational thing to learn about. Like what I teach is called the 5 channels of awareness, which is just understanding that's a sensation, that's an emotion. My body wants to move in a different way. It's feeling called to act or do something different. Imagination, like, am I ruminating? Am I stuck in the future or the past? And then what's the story? Like, what am I making this mean about me? And just being able to understand those 5 channels in each situation that I've been in. Like, we had the earthquake, it was scary, but I was like, this didn't actually bother me that much. And then I had this like aha moment about like relationships, and how that's way more triggering, and got like very inspired to start to go into more of that. And just being able to be present with like each new situation, instead of like, I used to be the type of person, and I know so many of us are like this, where I don't want to do the thing until I feel ready, or I don't feel like
Yeah.
I deserve to go on this vacation until I've resolved this symptom. And really bringing in the energy of like, what if exactly the way that I am now is totally fine? Like, how can I enjoy this moment? How can I still have a good day even though something is happening? So like being able to be present with the emotions, the sensations, whatever's going on in the body, and sit with that discomfort, but then also being able to say, that's okay. This is fine. I'm still gonna
Yeah.
live my life and enjoy my day.
Oh, I love that. I think that's such an important message, and one that I've kind of experienced living in a different country where it's like it's so much slower paced here.
Yeah.
Especially when we lived in the jungle, it was like there was nowhere to hide from myself, right?
Yeah.
Like in the best possible way, but also like, ooh, like the demons are coming. I
Yeah.
have this Frida Kahlo quote on my arm, a tattoo that says, I tried to drown my sorrows, but the bastards learned to swim. And it was like very indicative of like my experience with just being in a new environment, not having so much stimulation or having different stimulation, and being okay with, yourself.
Yeah. The lifelong practice of that.
Yeah.
Especially as you age, like, oh great, I got through this chronic illness, and now I'm 40, and now I get to deal with all this stuff. Like, I better
Right.
have I better have these tools, because as we age, it's just gonna keep happening. Like, we're gonna just
Exactly.
get bombarded with different things over and over again.
Yeah.
Well, this has been so beautiful. We've been way over time, so thank you so much for sitting down with me. And if people don't know where to find you, where can they find all of your work and your podcast?
So the podcast is the wellness reality check. I don't know why I blanked on that. I was like, wait, what? It's wellness reality check. We have a website, wellnessrealitycheck.com. Social media, same handle. My social media is hungry.tribe. My website is the Hungry Tribe. In my link in my social media bio, you can set up a free discovery call. You can kind of find my website and all of the things that you would need to find more information on me and what I have to offer.
Awesome. Thank you, Ashley, so much. This has been
Yeah,
awesome, and hopefully we get to connect again in the future.
absolutely. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And thank you everyone for listening. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you, everyone. I am just so thrilled that you're listening to the Healer Revolution podcast. This has been a huge passion project for me and super therapeutic on top of that, helping me to use my voice and connect with other like-minded individuals. So if you're enjoying the podcast, please like and subscribe. Please share on social media or with your audience or friends or loved ones. I truly appreciate it. It does take a lot of time and financial costs to run the podcast, and it is not a moneymaker, let me tell you. So if you are enjoying this, I would truly appreciate your support just by sending me a post, a like, and a subscribe. Thank you so much.